G'day everyone and welcome to Self Relativity Live. I'm your host for today, Mick Spears. I'm joined by Dr. Vahé Ohanessian, the founder of Self Relativity and the author of the newly released book, The Theory of Self Relativity. I'll be your host today and guiding you through a few questions, but we're also going to encourage you as well to put your own questions in the comments, and we can have some time with Dr. Vahé to unpack this big world of self-relativity that he has shared with the world. So we look forward to a really great discussion with you today. Without any further ado, though, I'd love to formally announce the launch of his book with this wonderful video that the team have put together. So first of all, Dr. Vahé, congratulations on the launch of the book. It's a little known fact that something like 85% of people in the world want to write a book and far less than 1% ever do it. And what you've produced is somewhat of a masterpiece, 715 pages, a genuine reference that people can use for their life to think about how they relate to themselves and everything around them. Not just a book that you're going to read from cover to cover in one go, but the kind of thing that you're going to have in your reference library that people can come to time and time again when they're having different challenges in their life. So Dr. Vahé, congratulations on behalf of everyone. It's absolutely wonderful achievement to see this book out there. A lot of work has gone into this, 7 years of research. Wonderful achievement to get it out there and to get people to starting to use it. Now it is called the User's Manual for the Mind. So I'd like to unpack that as our start, this concept of a user manual for the mind, but I'd also like to understand what inspired you to develop the theory of self-relativity in the first place.
Well, Mick, thank you for the introduction. It was way kind of you to speak quite well about this, but I think that it's all well deserved and it's there. I'm very happy that I finally got to accomplish this task. It has been over 7 years, and as I started writing it down, I realized that there's just more and more to how we think and how we relate to everything else. So I just tried to make this a comprehensive thing. During my lifetime, especially even when I was from time that I was a child, I was always looking at things in a different way. And sometimes I realized some of the familial things or cultural or social teachings and some of the belief systems that we were brought up with, it was not in match and in sync with how reality was. So I was always deeply looking to see how I related to everything and everyone else. And in due time, about 7 or 8 years ago, I started writing my thoughts down, and I realized that there's quite a bit of depth that hasn't been covered. Most motivational systems out there are more like appeals to emotions, and they try to make you feel good. And as recognized, one of the problems that we're having when it comes to self-improvement is the need to feel good versus the necessity to think well is one of the main problems that we have in trying to improve our lives. Many things that we need to improve are not very favorable and very positive. So we focus on trying to feel good. And having recognized all these discrepancies that we had, I tried to put my thoughts together in order to be able to see what central formula and one central way of dealing with these matters of our existence can push us forward. And that's how theory of self-relativity came about.
Yeah, wonderful, Vahé. And I've got to say that we're starting to see some comments come through on LinkedIn, and also we're streaming out to LinkedIn Live, we're streaming out to X Live, and we're streaming out to YouTube. So we're three destinations at the moment, and you're starting to get some congratulations coming through. So you've got Amen, congratulations. You've got a congratulations here from Therese Spears. That's my wife, but you know, she's very proud of you. You've got Ray also making a comment, and he's made a question that we're going to come to later, but he's also, the opportunity to join us here today. So well done. Let's come back to what you were just saying before. You're essentially saying to feel good, you must think well. What does that mean? Unpack that for us.
Well, we pretty much spend most of our life trying to avoid the dislike and trying to see how we can feel good. And as I said, the necessity to think well versus the need to feel good is one of the problems that we have. And a lot of times for us to feel good, we have to produce the right thoughts. Our thoughts are supportive of our feelings, and our feelings lead to our behavior. And we can either deal with the thoughts that are producing our uncomfortable feelings, which they usually, as you can read in the book, and you can see it's about 5-to-1 negative feelings versus positive, because negativity is intended to be protective. So we have more negative feelings, but we don't like negative feelings. So we can either use our feelings to find out what thoughts are causing them, and then to see what the triggers of those thoughts are, resolve and eliminate them so we feel better. Or we can take the quick way out and trying to use our intelligence to come up with a rationalization or some kind of a justification as to why what we're feeling is not right, so that we self-deceive by changing how we see reality. And that is a very common thing about all human beings. It will probably be, it is not probably, but it is one of the primary reasons why we can't improve. Hence why self-deception is the number one enemy of self-improvement in the book.
So you talk about these negative thoughts, and we do know that to be true. We know that people fear loss to a much greater extent than they ever appreciate gain. You speak in the book about the number one purpose of the brain is to do what? Tell us about this.
Yeah, so we're surrounded. The reason why we're so surrounded by negativity, I say it in the book, negativity is a default state of our existence, but positivity is only a state of experience. As we've all recognized, and this is not being a sour or anything, but this is that's why relativity is out there, for us to understand how nature works. Once we understand what the difficulties of nature are, then we deal with them properly. Then we can become the self-agent to be able to improve our lives. So the reason negativity is dominant is because of two factors. One, because we're material objects, we're made of atoms. We connect with the universe, which is the relativity that we have as material objects and as interactions of our atoms. And the universe is disorderly, basically, because of the Big Bang and the second law of thermodynamics, entropy, which you can read in detail. The universe becomes more disorderly. That's why when left alone, things go wrong. So our environment is negative by nature. And then our mind and our brain is also programmed to be default negative, because our brain's main job is to keep us safe so that we can find food. When we're looking for food, we don't become food. We have shelter to be safe, and we can procreate to pass our genes on. So the brain is not interested in our happiness as much as it's interested in our safety, because if we're not safe, we will not be able to be happy. So these two negativities combined together are why we feel a lot more negative. That's why I say in the book, I go, if you feel negative more often than positive, and if your negativities arise faster and last longer than your positivities, you're simply a normal human being. So once we understand some of these basics of how we exist, then through our understanding, we can go ahead and start making changes so that then we can experience more longer lasting and more frequencies of happiness and positivity.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Vahé. And it's really interesting to stop and reflect on that. Very thought-provoking to think that negativity bias came from a survival instinct that potentially the world is not as dangerous as it once was when there were saber-toothed tigers at the edge of the cave, but that human instinct, that primal instinct, never went away. So the threats might form different types of threats. They might not be mortal threats anymore, but they're still there, and it's hard for us to switch that off. So that's a really powerful one for us to take away. Now, I want to say, Vahé, we are getting some questions in the comments, which is wonderful, and I'm storing those up, and we'll soon get to some of the audience Q&A. If anyone watching has got some other questions that they'd like to ask, please do. Wherever you're watching, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on X Live, or if it's on YouTube, please do put those comments or questions in, and we'll absolutely get there for sure. So to build on that, this concept around the way that we think, you also say that feelings are for feeling, not for thinking. Can you unpack that for us?
We're more aware of our feelings because our feelings lead to our behaviors. It's basically thoughts, feelings, behavior, and our feelings are closer to our behavior. And again, that comes from our primitive and um, uh, instinctual survival mechanism, because we have to feel and immediately react. For survival, quick reactions in terms of fight or flight were of great importance. So that's why even nowadays, where we do not have as many primitive dangers as I've defined in the book, we still feel and try to behave, because everything that we're trying to do is we're either trying to feel good, we're trying to feel better, or we're trying to feel less bad. So we just want to always improve how we feel. Previously, if we escaped a tiger in the jungles, our stress level went down, and we consequently felt better than we were feeling a few minutes ago. It's the same thing now when we confront some kind of an anxiety or difficulty. We immediately want to do something where we can feel better. Sometimes the right thing to do will take longer to do, to correct, or sometimes we can just come up with a thought in order to make ourselves feel good without resolving the underlying issue. This is why we're very aware of our feelings, but we're not aware of our thoughts as much. So although theory of self-relativity and the factual thinking system is a cognitive mechanism, the best way for us to be cognitive is for us to be able to find our way to our thoughts through the awareness of our emotions, where the cognitive cognition technique comes in. So we use the awareness of our emotions instead of acting immediately, to first verify whether our thoughts are factual or not, and then move forward along with that.
Wonderful, Vahé. We're starting to get some really interesting questions in the comments. So I'm gonna go away from some of my pre-scripted questions. I'm going to blend some of them in. They're really quite interesting. So Amen has asked, who, if anyone, influenced you to write this book?
I would say that it was myself, because I'd made a lot of different decisions in life, and I've done a lot of things, and some were really good and some were really bad, and just like everyone else, I made mistakes in my life. And about the time that I started writing the book, I also had a very bad car accident where I almost died. I went under a truck in a convertible car. Having said that, I was already start beginning to write, and I tried to find out why is it that we go through these ups and downs in life. And as I started thinking deeper and deeper, I found out that there was one four-letter item that was basically the center of everything. That was the common factor for everything. And that was myself. So as I started realizing, I realized everything that has happened in my life, whether I think it was chance or not, I somehow had positioned myself or abstained from positioning myself to be confronting that. So that became the basis of how I started writing.
All right, thank you, Vahé. And Armin's asked another question about the book, so I'm going to go straight to that one as well, which is, will the book be released on Audible? And I think I can help you with that one. It'll
Yes,
be
please.
released in about 2 to 3 weeks, Armin. So it's already out and available on a paperback and also a ebook version, which you can get available from both Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So you can go into Amazon now. You can find a copy of the book there, or also on Barnes and Noble. And this is a call to action for everyone watching. If you are going to get it on Amazon, please also help Vahé out. The reviews are really important. So if you buy a copy on Amazon, please do also leave an honest review on Amazon as well. Okay, if we go back to some of the other questions that we've had, this was an interesting one from Say Spears watching on YouTube. What is factual thinking, Vahé?
So the way that I've discussed many things in the book is that at the fundamental level, everything is binary. It's either one thing or the other. It's either left or right. Even electrons are either clockwise or counterclockwise spinning. We're either asleep or awake. We're either dead or alive. So at the fundamental level, everything is binary. And when it comes to our thoughts, each individual thought can be viewed as a binary system of whether it's factual or non-factual. All of our individual thoughts collectively, they make up our thinking system. Now, we've all heard that we should think in shades of gray, not being black and white thinkers. Yes, as a collective, it should be a shade of gray. But the unfortunate thing is that you can't think in the shade of gray, so you can't think from outside in. The way to make the right shade of gray, which is a combination of pixels of black and whites, or on and offs, or zeros and ones, or facts, factual and non-factual, is for us to be able to identify each individual thought that we have and see whether it's factual or not. we have about, it's guesstimated that we have about 70,000 thoughts per day. And based on my estimation, about 90% of them are non-factual and unnecessary. And those are the ones that cause a lot of rumination, a lot of overthinking. So once we begin to recognize our individual thoughts, which again, the best way is that how we're feeling, the strongest feelings that we're having, to use those feelings to be able to see what thoughts are causing it, then that starts becoming an intuitive method where as soon as we feel something, instead of doing something to change our feelings, we recognize what thoughts are causing, and we try to understand whether it's fact-based or whether it's something that's non-factual or we created it. And once we do that, then we can properly resolve or eliminate the thought. And according to that, we change our feelings and alongside our behavior.
Yeah, wonderful. And I think that certainly answers Say's question. It makes you stop and think about the way that we do go about our life. Do we react in the world based on perceptions, or do we test whether, is this true? Do I know this to be true before we actually make a reaction? I want to go to some other comments that we've had here. Vahé, this is something I have not seen, so I don't know if you have. So Ray has asked two questions about Terrence Howard. Have you seen Terrence Howard's interview on the Joe Rogan Experience, and saying that it was game-changing for him, and then also referencing a paper from Terrence Howard called The Linchpin. Are you familiar with that at all, Vahé, and any reflections?
I am familiar, and I did hear that. Part of what I teach when it comes to the way that we think is skepticism. Our default system should be that, okay, if we're thinking something or if somebody's making a claim, we need to be able to see the evidence behind it. Because if we do not see the evidence, then we don't know if the claim is factual or the thought is factual. This is how we've also formed opinions. We create a thought, an opinion, or an idea, and if we think our thought, opinion, or idea has value, it becomes a belief. A belief is an assumed and convinced state of mind, which we believe to be true. We're convinced it's true, but we don't know it is because we haven't verified it with facts. Once we verify a thought with facts, or a belief with facts, it's no more a belief, it's knowledge. So in the recent times, especially in the past month, Joe Rogan has really gone sidetracked into quite a bit of mysticism and things that are not literally fact-based. Many of the claims that I heard, both in Terrence Howard and there was another one that he recently did, I believe it was Billy Carson or whatever the name is, which was in similar things. They make a lot of claims that, and when they're making claims as they're speaking, they all sound very logical and especially very unique and conspiratorial. And we have a tendency of wanting to believe in conspiracies and all that because we literally are programmed to believe. If it's not a religion that we believe in, then we're going to create some other kind of an ideological social construct to believe it. And some of these programs also are promoting that type of a thinking. I'm not saying whether they're right or wrong. All I'm saying is that for the claims that are made, I haven't seen any evidence that supports it. There can be a paper published here or there. Nowadays, especially with AI, there's always a paper published to support any kind of an ideology that somebody wants to put in. So we have to be able to be skeptical, and we have to be able to demand for the evidence before we act on that or we start believing in it. So it is very important to be skeptical, to be able to look for the facts of either our own thoughts or other people's claims.
So thank you, Ray, for the question. I feel like
great question, yes.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think that's it's really important that we have these conversations. Like, so when people put up these ideas, that's great, but then let's have a challenging conversation about the idea and understand, well, what is it? Where's that coming from? What is it trying to draw our attention to? And then we can break down from there. It's probably a good segue to this question, Vahé, which you've been quite vocal about some of the challenges that you see in the self-help industry. It's not identical to the question from Ray, but it's connected in some way. What do you see is wrong with the self-help industry today?
Well, most people that want to improve have one of the two have the two non-negotiables that I've identified for self-improvement. One is the desire to improve, and second is introspection and self-reflection, which means to look within yourself to see what needs improvement. And because improvement has been difficult and it's been very much oriented with appeal to emotions, which most of the improvement systems out there have been telling what people what they want to hear instead of telling them what they need to hear. So because of this, a lot of them use appeal to emotions in terms of telling people that there's some kind of a mysticism out there, or there's some kind of a mystical factor out there. It, you can see pseudoscience kicking in into self-help. Neither self-help nor any of these other things need to be endlessly undefined. At some point, we should be able to define it and be able to come up with ways where we can regularly apply to all aspects of our life. And our core existence is basically how we think. As long as we don't have any physiological or biological or mental disorders, we should be able to cognitively understand how to guide our life forward. And most of the self-help systems out there, including even therapies and all that, or including glorifications of things such as um, uh, uh, certain programs like meditation and so on, as if they will transport us to a different state once we accomplish a certain level. Those have become very disappointing to people, because people get into these and try to practice, and they're vague, they're broad, they're applicable to everyone, but yet they don't show you how to do it. Motivation is easy; they get you excited, but then they don't show you a roadmap where you need to be able to take that motivation into, so that then you can start correcting and improving things in life. So this has been the problem with self-help and self-improvement, and it's a continuous thing. And most of these methods that I discussed, including some of the therapies and all that, they always end, each session and each program ends with the same thing of "see you next week." So it becomes an endless pit of where people fall in, and they just can't get themselves out. After a certain amount of time, this is why self-relativity is so thick and so big, and so much has been written in there, so that it's not just something that you read and try to memorize. It's something that you try to understand, and you use it as reference every time that you need to understand certain aspects of it. So because of this, at some point, once you get enough information, you should become your own coach. You should be able to drive your own life, and you should be able to teach others. You should not be dependent forever on another new system that comes out, on another new program that comes out, or on the next motivational meme that you need to read tomorrow just to get yourself going through another day.
Yeah, there's a few things I'm taking away there, and building a few things from our discussion, Vahé. First of all, this thing of "see you next week," that some of these programs themselves, they're a business. So first of all, there's a potential conflict of interest where the interest is to get the person back next week. Secondly, that it's addictive, that it gives you a temporary feeling of feeling better about yourself. That becomes addictive. And third, that it probably hasn't resolved the core issue, the root cause of what was causing that emotional distress, or whatever it was that the person was trying to fix. If you haven't hit the root cause, you have to keep coming back. How does that sit with you?
It definitely is. And then there's two things involved here where they capitalize on, a lot of them intentionally and some of them even unintentionally. One of them is that when all fails, for example, when, let's say, meditation is a relaxation method where you can use, just like reading a book, just like working out and all that. But if you think meditation at some point is going to open your mind up to this separate dimension that's out there that you don't know about it, it's not going to happen. And what happens is because that's a violation of the laws of physics that govern us as atom-based objects, without getting too much into physics. So what happens is that when those hopes fail, then the hopelessness actually becomes a lot worse than having never tried it, because the person that's looking to improve, they're like, well, everyone else says meditation really works, and I couldn't even do that. I mean, how bad am I? But it's not because of you. It's because of the system is being overpromised in to operate in a certain way that it's not. And when you complain or when you realize that you failed, the blame comes back to you. Well, you didn't believe hard enough, or you didn't try hard enough, so you become the victim yourself. The other thing is, again, it's our need to believe. So if we take one belief away, we want to make sure that we can come up with another way of believing. And the way to prolong beliefs is to come up with some kind of a thought, with some kind of an opinion that it's unresolvable, where you cannot find an end point to it, to verify that belief with a fact to turn it into knowledge. So as long as you stay in belief, you're going to be in this temporary state of mind that's open and wide. And one of the reasons why we want to believe is because if we take all our beliefs away and we realize that we are responsible for our own purpose and meaning in life, then that self-agency becomes very difficult, where we're like, we can't sit there and create hopes for ourselves or other means of just trying to go through life without having to sometimes adhere to some of the difficulties that there is. Now, again, I don't. All of these negativities that exist are because of how our surrounding, how our mind is. And one of the biggest negativities is that at some point we die. So once we understand and accept these things and learn how to deal with it, then we can. There are different ways that I've written in the book, and there are different ways that I'm going to dictate in the future, or come out and explain in the future how we can improve our lives so that our positivities last longer. One thing that I will say again, in the book, I say change happens, change or you'll be changed. Because from the Big Bang starting, everything changes constantly and consistently. That's the only thing that's constant in the universe. And because of the Big Bang and the second law of thermodynamics, change happens, and change happens in a disorderly way. So if you let things be, they're going to become worse. That's why when I say change happens, it's pretty much like saying shit happens. And once shit happens, shit will happen again. So what we need to do is we need to be able to face the difficulties, clean them out, um, filter them out, so that we have less negativity, so that then we can start enjoying our positivities. And anytime a new negativity comes in, you nip it in the bud and just move quickly forward. So we have to learn to make change a normal part of our existence, a proactive way of us existing, and not run away from it, which most of these other systems don't teach.
That's a really great takeaway there, Vahé. Sorry for the giggle in my voice, but shit happens, and when shit happens again. All right, so it's about those patterns. So one more technical question, then I'm going to got some more questions about the book, and to close us out for today's show. You've also given us lots of material today that I can unpack for sure in future live streams. So for everyone joining in today, you can hear the richness of this content. We're going to have lots of other live streams coming up. Please do join us. So the next one, I want to finish on a positive here. What are the two non-negotiables for self-improvement? So there's challenges with the self-improvement industry, but it is needed. So what are the two non-negotiables for making it work?
Well, I briefly referred to it, and the two non-negotiables are, number one, desire to improve, which means that we need to improve, want to improve, and number two is introspection, which is self-reflection and basically self-inspection. We're always using our cameras to look outside, and we must learn to turn the surveillance cameras back towards ourselves, to be able to look within ourselves to see what we need to use, what we need to identify in order to be able to improve. So we need to want to improve, and we need to know what needs improvement. There are certain people, for example, I'm quite involved with personality disorders, cluster B, narcissistic and borderline personalities. I'm quite well versed and understood in that. For example, the classic symptom of a narcissist is that if you tell them, you can ask them a question, in your mind, in what ways can you change and improve? And their answer is always, I don't need to change, improve. Everything is fine with me. So if you don't see the desire to improve, there's no way that you can improve. Even my system won't help you. And if you're not willing to turn within yourself to see some of the things that you might have buried for a long time and not even be aware of it, those things that need to improvement, even my system cannot help you. However, most people that look for self-improvement, they inherently are looking to improve. So that problem is not there for people that are seeking self-improvement and personal development and just trying to make their lives better by taking on certain personal responsibility.
So really great, Vahé, and I think that's the perfect segue to this final question here from Armin, which is about how do you recommend that people read the book? So I mentioned earlier that it's more of a reference. You can read it cover to cover. It'll take you a long time, but it's more of a reference. How do you recommend people use the book?
So the way that I think people will use the book will be mostly, probably half will enter it from we have a very rich word index, where if you're having a problem with your relationships today, or if you're having a problem with your job, or if you're having a problem with whatever else is, you can just search for those words that are bothering you, and you will find the segments that address those things. But once you start reading, I'm pretty sure, I can almost guarantee that you're not going to be able to stop. You'll just keep on going to the next paragraph, into the next chapter, into the next chapter. And then you'll say, you know what, well, let me just start from the beginning. I think this book, you'll probably end up at some point reading it at least 5 to 10 times. But most importantly, you'll start referencing it in different ways. You need to read it to to be able to realize the content that there is in it. And then you will remember at a future time when you need to address it, you'll remember, oh, I read this. I don't know exactly where it was, but then I'm going to go find it and then reference it back. And this is why it took me 7 years, because I didn't want to come up with a whole bunch of different versions of this book. I wanted to create pretty much like a Bible type of a collective as a user's manual. So it's there because these are things us as human beings and the environment that we deal with, whether it was 2,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, or whether it will be 1,000 years from now, the facts are facts, and we're going to be dealing with it the same way. So there's not going to be a lot of change coming, although there will be more detailed information coming in the future publications. The collective of what there is will be the reference for you. So you can always enter from any point that you want. But I'm pretty sure even myself, when I start reading it, I just keep on going. I just can't stop. Although I address the thing that I wanted to look, I just keep on going. And I think that's where the real fun part of this thing starts.
Yeah, wonderful, Vahé. So congratulations again. And I'll remind people, please do go out and get a copy of the book. So it is available on Amazon and on Barnes & Noble in both an ebook and a paperback. And it would be great. Please do, Vahé, this favor of leaving an honest review on Amazon. This is really important. It helps fuel the algorithm to make sure that this important book gets in front of as many people's eyes as possible. So we're going to close out a bit now, Vahé. Any final comments that you would like to share with the audience before I close us out?
I think the final comment that comes to my mind is always my mission statement in my book. The book is a 715-page book, but the mission statement is one line: to live this improbably rare gift of life to its fullest possible potential. You have one life to live. Every day that goes by, it's one less day. If you read it in there's quite a bit of information as to how we can try to make our lives better. So the sooner we can get the negativities out and cleaned up, the more we can enjoy the path to happiness and positivity.
Thank you, Vahé. And a few final words from me. Thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you for the insightful comments and questions that you left. I hope that you join us for future live streams. We're going to come to you once a week. We're still working on the scheduling, but we're going to come to you once a week and go deeper into some of these topics that Vahé is talking about, from the theory of self-relativity, the 10 enemies of self-improvement, the 10 commandments for self-improvement. We can go into them one at a time, but more importantly, we can answer your questions live. So if there's something that you want to unpack further and understand, something that you're struggling with even, Vahé will be here and will be able to answer your questions. Please don't forget to get your copy of The Theory of Self-Relativity on Barnes & Noble or on Amazon. Please do leave an honest review. The audio book on Audible will be out in about 2 to 3 weeks' time. I also encourage you, if you haven't already done so, please do follow Vahé on LinkedIn or on X so you get the announcements, or you can also subscribe to the Self Relativity YouTube channel, where these live streams will be going on there so that you can watch them back together with some other videos as well. Also pleased to announce that the Self Relativity podcast has also been launched and has currently got 3 episodes available, and with new episodes will be released every week. So Vahé, well done. Congratulations again on behalf of everyone. Absolutely amazing achievement, something that you should be very proud of. And to the audience, please support Dr. Vahé on this journey, but also do it for yourself, because there's something in Dr. Vahé's material for everyone. So that's it for this week's show. We'll close out with a reminder on the book, and we'll see you at the next live stream.
Thank you all. Thank you for coming.